The following stream contains mature content and subject matter. Viewer discretion is advised. Chicago. Ask someone to picture the city, and they will have trouble coming up with a concise description. When people think of New York City, they think of skyscrapers, subways, and muggers. When they think of Los Angeles, they think of sun, smog, and traffic. When they think of Detroit, they think of cars, and decay. But for those of us that know, there's only one thing we think of when someone mentions Chicago: vampires. And tonight, we tell their story. Well. So you've decided to come see your boy Twitch again. We're not in the jazz bar tonight. I needed a little peace. Don't think I didn't hear someone call me a scoundrel as you were coming up. I heard that. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Well, guess we'll see if you make it out alive, huh? It has been a while since we last got together. I have been busy between my new duties and other events about the city. It has been tough to find a chance to speak with you all, but that doesn't matter as much because I am here tonight. And tonight, well, we've got a lot to cover, don't we? It has been so long since we chatted. I don't know how much you are aware of the goings-ons of Chicago. Well, let's see where to start. Well, when we last spoke, last time we spoke, you had not heard what happened to Mr. Decker. Seems he had a very unpleasant visit from Miss Tracy Graves and a mage, and I'm told that, well, the funny thing about being a kindred is you're not really good at dealing with having your insides on the outsides and your outsides on the inside. I've heard it can be rather discombobulating for someone. But Decker's always been a prick, so I guess he got what he deserves. So let's start with the important parts. After the events of the Big O blowing up, Capone's fall, it seems Samantha went to the one place she felt safe after that event, Roscoe's Haven. Now, I personally would not find a place that burns down repeatedly to be that safe, but I guess in this case, She felt it would be safe, but when she arrived, she was injured, you might say, as one of the awakened, using what they refer to as vulgar magic, has a price. Reality doesn't like that, and like a rubber band, it snaps back, and it injures the individual. And in her case, the paradox came back in a way that burnt her skin, damaged her blood vessels. Really, it was quite painful, I assume, for her. But Roscoe, being the gentleman he is, who also happened to have a caved-in chest at the time, really didn't call her out on it. So he gave her a chance to recuperate. Now, while recuperating, for those that weren't aware, Isabella has a ghoul named Emilio, and Emilio had given Roscoe some videos of modern magic. At least that's what he was told. Now, these actual videos were something of a different subject. So when he decided they would watch a video on magic in the modern age, it seems Roscoe, well, set Samantha up to watch The Fisherman's Daughter, and The Fisherman's Daughter 2, The Retentacling, which, even for my disturbed state, was unsettling. The question I would have had for Roscoe is, if you watch the first one and you see what it entails, why the fuck would you watch the second one? It seems to be a bit of a, well, a fetish for him, it must be. He finally has come clean to Samantha, and while they spent these few days together while she recovered and he healed up from his caved-in chest, it seems every time Roscoe woke from his day's sleep, Miss Samantha was curled up next to his undead corpse, snuggled up beside him in bed. You see, he has a problem in his little mage stalker. A bad problem. One that I'm not quite sure he knows how to deal with. Let's see. Where shall we go to next? The Elysia event, perhaps? There was a big Elysia event shortly after the incident with Capone getting killed and the Big O blowing up. It was one of the Prince Jackson's routine court gatherings where he pronounces judgments, hears complaints, and meets with his subjects. And while at this event, the very first thing they discovered, of course, is the madam had spirits watching, keeping over Nicholas, keeping an eye on him. And Nicholas mentioned he would like to meet with her, but the spirits that she employs informed him that she would summon him when she's ready, not the other way around. The madam is a very odd individual. We will discuss her a little bit more shortly, but let's just say that I tend to even avoid her. She is a bit unsettling for me as well. I don't need her delving into my history, my future, my existence. So at this night of Elysia, let's see. Jenny met with Bobby. And Jenny has this life boon, you see, with Bobby Weatherbottom. And while that means he owes her, what most people don't seem to think about is the fact that when you have a life boon to somebody, the one that you owe the life boon to also has a bit of an obligation as well, for you see, a life boon does no good if you let the one who owes it to you be destroyed. That is a wasted life boon, is it not? So Bobby has requested from Jenny that if she wants him to be around to redeem this life boon that he owes her, he needs to get him out from under the control of the Archon, Don Akata, who is using him to spy on the Anarchs, and specifically to spy on one Duncan McTavish. A gangrel. Well, a gangrel who has done the unthinkable. He has shot an Archon and gotten away with it. Now, I know bullets don't tend to injure us as much as you may think, but there's the principle of the matter. You see, you cannot let an Archon be attacked and not have a retaliation come from it. It sets the wrong precedent, the wrong example. I know Jenny has plans for him. I'm not quite sure how well they will go, but she does have plans for him. What else happened this eventful Elysia night? Well, Nicholas pulled Damien aside to ask about that necklace that Damien wears. You see, Nicholas has had some spirits asking for him to retrieve it from Damien. And since Damien is the sheriff, you can't exactly take his necklace now, can you? So when Nicholas asked Damien about this ring he wears, Damien gave him the story about the woman he loved who was killed by the Lupine during the Lupine War. And he wears that ring as his memento. But he did say he would give up something. He did say there was one thing he would trade the ring for. And there's a picture of the two of them together. You see, Damien, though he is young for a kindred, he understands. Given time, given centuries, you will eventually forget what the one you loved looks like. You will forget their face times together. So Damien, being a bit sentimental apparently, would like a picture of the two of them so that he can always remember that happy time they had together. Now, where would Nicholas get a picture? That is another question altogether, and one that I don't think Nicholas has quite solved yet. We will have to give him time to find it. While there, the coterie actually did meet with Prince Jackson to inform him that Alphonse Capone is finally dead. Now, you see, Alphonse's existence was a problem. First of all, as famous as he was, he should never have been embraced. That is a simple fact. But once embraced, as part of the condition for Jackson assuming the throne, was he made a deal with the Primogen and with certain other members of the Camarilla that Alphonse Capone would cease to exist, would cease to be a threatening masquerade breach, would cease to be a problem for Clan Ventru. Supposedly Alphonse had been killed, but you see he had not. So by him continuing to exist, well, this cast a problem for Jackson. So when the coterie came forward and finally said that he had been disposed of, it raised a question about, well, the tradition of destruction. You see, Capone never officially had a blood hunt. So, left Jackson with a question of, does he punish them for killing and breaking the tradition of destruction? Even though the killing of Capone was needed, should be done. To punish them for the breaking of the tradition, he would have to have admitted that Capone was not dead, that something that had been being told to them for many years was a lie. Jackson is shrewd with his politics at times. He made a deal. The coterie will say nothing about Capone or his death. That will be between them and the prince, and no punishment will fall upon them, and instead, for their silence, he will give them a boon. Boon from a prince is a valuable thing. Some have already redeemed them, some redeemed them later. I know Jackie requested Jackson's support for when she decides to declare praxis over Milwaukee. Jenny asked for permission to embrace to create chowder in the city. Nicholas wanted his for later. Very odd what they request. Lamar, of all of them, only asked for something very simple. Lamar just wanted the prince to recognize the usefulness that he has had to the city. I guess as a La Sombra is very useful, since he is now new to the Camarilla, to have it put out that they are doing good things. And let's see, while they were there, after the meeting with the prince, Isabella spoke with Prince Decker, who was there. And Prince Decker, always the fool that he is, the impetuous hothead, decided to make veiled threats about the stability of the prince and his position in the city, as if a lickspittle like Decker could ever take down a prince like Kevin Jackson. But it made Isabella wonder. He is awful confident for somebody who has never had the power to threaten in that way. It'll be interesting to see. We're going to touch more on that because additional information does come out on that discussion. Let's see. Jackie, she met with Primogen Cedric Calhoun, a Nosferatu of immense curiosity. And she explained to him what happened to the young ones that had been in the city, that had been, well, they went to see the seer, the woman who lives in the Undercity. They retrieved an idol. Jackie informed them that if he wanted more information on those young ones and what they were doing, he would have to see the seer. Now, Cedric is no fool. He avoids the seer as most kindred do, myself included, honestly. But I'm sure he sent somebody to speak to the seer. I wonder what'll come from that one. I mentioned judgment. The Prince finally, with this day of court, passed sentence on one Warlock and Lord of the Tremere, Victor. For Victor's unpolitical harassment of Kevin Jackson's subjects inside those subjects' own personal domain, the prince has decreed that the Warlock now owes the coterie a boon to be decided by the coterie members at their judgment and when they wish. I'm sure it did not make him happy. What would they do with the boon from a court warlock? Well, if you ask some members of the coterie, I think the boon they would like him to perform would be to go fuck himself. Or to go watch the sunrise, but I don't think that's a redeemable boon. We shall see. Finally, one little bit to finish up that covers from older stuff here. You may recall me mentioning about a young Lasombra named Celia. Well, Lamar officially assumed his duties to tutor her 2 days a week into what it means to be Lasombra. You see, Prince Jackson will have others teach her what it means to be Camarilla. But to truly train a Lasombra, you need another Lasombra to do it. And so that would be Lamar's case. Quite interesting. Daddy Lamar there. It's Daddy Lamar. Let's see, what shall we talk about now? I know Jenny and Tendon Ripper were seen together at Jenny's restaurant. I guess that would mean Tendon Ripper was seen with Jenny at her restaurant. I don't believe that letting a lupine eat at your restaurant would be enjoyable to watch. I heard they have horrible table manners. But nonetheless, it seems that Jenny and this Tendon Ripper are developing a friendship of a sort, which is odd. Our kind normally don't get along with lupine. I've known only a handful in all my time. But times are changing, aren't they? The younger generation is generally more liberal anyway. What else shall we talk about? Shall we bring up Victor again? Lord Victor in this case. And as a lord, that makes him somewhere between a pontifex and a regent. He is lord over the Chicago area. And Roscoe was called to meet with Lord Victor and Regent Abraham de Sable. At this meeting, Roscoe was asked to make a choice, a final choice, a decision about where he stands. Does he stand with his chantry, with the pyramid, or as the new version likes to call himself, the Presidium, or does he stand with his friend Sun Chi, who is accused of being an infernalist? Roscoe, without hesitation, chose his friendship over the chantry, and as expected, the punishment for this was Roscoe was exiled, banished from the Tremere Chantry, no longer welcome, no longer to be considered part or under the protection of the pyramid. Roscoe is cast to do his own thing, which, I shall be honest, I don't think is hurting him that much. I believe it is in his best interest in a lot of ways. I know the coterie was rather supportive of it. They seem to agree with that statement, so that's always good. Let's see, where should we go next? We're going to talk more about the Sun Shi thing later, but where shall we go? Let's see. Shall we bring up Isabella? Her and Nicholas seems to be building a bond. I guess it makes sense considering Isabella is the spitting image of his sister Izzy, his twin. And I know Isabella and him spent time looking over the journals of one Braden White. Now you see, Braden is an interesting individual because Braden is a La Sombra whose memory has been turned into Swiss cheese. I have to say, the one who did it is not very subtle. They are not very skilled. There are skills with memories to do it. There are ways to do it much more finesse, much more seamlessness. The brutality of what's been done to Braden has caused him to go insane. But these journals he's kept are the important bits. You see, for sharing them with Nicholas, Nicholas read through and found the section that mentioned his sister. And his sister remembered that day. You see, his sister met with Amelia DiCarlo. And it was this Amelia DiCarlo that got her sick, that killed Nicholas's sister. Why? Well, that's not fully come out at this discussion yet, but it comes soon. We will talk about that again. But it is a very important part to understand because Nicholas, through all his time as a kindred, loves his sister, will continue to love his sister. And as he puts it, he would burn the city down for her, for she still inhabits the necklace she gave him, trapped as a wraith. But they figure Vivian, Isabella's sire, was working with Nicholas's family. It's funny the ties you have there. You have Isabella's sire working with Nicholas's family. Nicholas's sister to be embraced by a Toreador, which is odd when you consider the family relations of Hakata, Cappadocians, for his particular branch, that they were willing. Well, in this case, there was Giovanni as well. His family was more Giovanni than Cappadocian. He just didn't get embraced by them as much. But they were willing to share. Must have been a deal. Now, what happens when a deal is broken? When you break a deal with a Hakata, I have it on good authority, they don't take it well. They tend to get upset. We will have to see how this one plays out as well, because Amelia is a problem. So many things that we will be talking about as we're going forward. You see, this is the problem with me discussing things in order of it happening. There's so many things we talk about now that I will bring back up. It is a loop, much like time. What's how we do? Jackie had a date with Mr. Harry North. Very interesting individual. She went out to the art galleries with him. Now, while it was a date just to get a feel for what kind of individual he is, there was other purposes to the date as well, for she wanted to go to one of Luke's galleries to find out, well, about a Luke. And there was the problem. You see, when Jackie went to the gallery, a Luke had not been seen there lately. which made Jackie rather curious, and she asked Harry about it. And Harry actually made a phone call. It turns out Mr. Harry North used to be the hound to Sheriff Damien, or one of his hounds. Now, he is no longer a hound because he did not enjoy the political aspect of being a hound, but that is a very useful connection to have. And the hounds are like, well, deputies of the sheriff. And obviously, Damien still feels he owes him because when Harry asked him about a Luke, Damien admitted that a Luke had disappeared, not been found, and that the warlock was investigating. A very good chance that, well, there is no Luke because a warlock only investigates when you have ashes to identify. Now, let's go back to talk about this madam. Nicholas was finally summoned to see the madam, and the madam told him to bring the twin reforged, one Isabella Caputo, and any others with him that wished to meet with her. So the coterie, minus Lamar, who was doing baby duty that day. Baby duty. But they went to meet this madam. There are many questions about what the madam is, about what, well, anything about her. I can tell you, she was embraced a long time ago. She was embraced into the clan of death. And she met her final death centuries ago. And yet she's still here. Her body is still there. How does one meet their final death but get a body back? Think about the implications of that. What could she be? I've got little insight in it, very little. She is, how can I put it? She did die. She died. Her final death. Unlike many of our kind, she became a wraith. She spent her time using her knowledge of the dead that she had gained while living as one of the dead to find a ritual that should not be done. It is the ritual of arising, to reconstitute a destroyed body, to force a dead soul back into a body. But to do it, the other half of yourself, the monster, the shadow, as they call it, the which your nemesis has to agree to it. So you have to make a deal. And to make that deal, well, it's, well, we have a visitor here that would like us to have followers out here in the woods. I don't think that's advisable. We shall do away with them, I think. But let's finish talking about the madam here. She rebuilt her body with these arcane means, returned to what she was. But now her shadow also has a form. The butler. She is a monster that should not exist. She is an undead kindred who became a wraith, who found a way back. Carries with her knowledge of both the Hakata and one of the restless dead. Now you see why I avoid her, why she enslaves the spirits around her, why she does what she does. And this is the layer that this coterie stepped into. This is what they went to see, this monstrosity. And while there, they found she's a collector of all things unique. Collection of spirits, collection of books, Book of the Grave War, Revelations of the Dark Mother, the Book of Nod. All these things are in her possession, along with many others. But the most vital thing she has is knowledge, though what she shares is very selective. In her case, she explained to Nicholas that him and Isabella are linked. She explained that Roscoe is going to be the cause of a war that will break the pyramid. Nicholas is being stalked by an ancient enemy that has wiped out his clan in Chicago. She also explained to Nicholas that when the time comes, he will ask her to guard that necklace that Izzy lives in, to protect it, which I don't think Nicholas agreed with. She told Jenny that Jenny will break the hold over a great corruptor over the city of Chicago, which they assume is Pentex. Now, is that the corruptor? We shall see. I guess we're going to find out as time goes forward. I don't see the future normally. I see mostly all the events of the current and of the past through the web that I live in. Where should we go next? Let's see. What was Lamar doing that night? Lamar was having an interesting night. He was babysitting his new fledgling. But while babysitting her, he stumbled upon a very interesting scene. It was a fight, you see, a fight between a Nosferatu wearing a mask and a Middle Eastern man with assistants. I believe those assistants would have to, at minimum, be thin bloods, perhaps ghouls. They moved faster than normal humans. But in this fight, 3 of the humans were killed. The Nosferatu, not liking how well it's going, fled to the Undercity. And then this Middle Eastern man killed his last human follower for the failure, letting him escape. It seems Roscoe had stumbled into 2 different cults that were important to the coterie. One being the Withered Ones, servants of the Nituku, which, let's just say they are Nosferatu or are misguided, who seem to think there's a way to return to beauty, as if that cursed clan could ever get back a beauty. The other one is the Shepherd. You see, there was a split. Previously, the Assamites were the clan of assassins, and there was a schism when one of their elders awoke. The elder demanded obedience to the old ways, subservience. So the Banu Hakim split off to be their own clan, leaving the Assamites to live in this fortress under the slave of Shurgoth, of all things. But you see, the former Assamites do not like the fact the Banu is split off, so there are groups of them out there called the Shepherds that seek to destroy all of them who split off, all of the heretics, part of the schism. Which is a job that Lamar was to look into, to find these so that Khadijah can be aware. Khadijah Al-Kinde, a Shira delegate and Primogen in Chicago. Lamar, having gained this info, decided it was time to meet with the coterie to explain what he had seen. And it was at this discussion between Lamar revealing that, Jenny revealing info about Bobby, that Jackie finally came clean to her coterie. After all this time, she admitted that she is a Justicar's informant. And while she did not name the Justicar she works for, she did admit that she has a handler in Chicago, and that handler is the one dealing with Bobby. Miss Dawn Akata. She is one of my clan, one of the children of Malkav. It's funny how our curse manifests in different ways. Mine manifests in requiring masks to deal with people, to deal with you. I have to create a personality just to interact. It's not that multiple personality thing you see. It's different. I don't relate without a shell to use. In her case, she envisions herself as a human computer. Well, an undead computer. The problem with being an undead computer is because we were once mortal, we were once human, kind. We are fallible, we make mistakes. And even her human computer makes mistakes. Let's see. It was at this same discussion that the coterie realized that Decker had to have somebody backing him. Somebody important. You see? And they decided to have Roscoe contact his friend Ambrose. Ambrose is a rather skilled computer hacker. He is to have Ambrose look into the matter of who's backing Decker, where's Decker getting funds, where he's getting support. That is going to come up later, you see, because the coterie has realized Capone was propped up by somebody, Luke was propped up by somebody. With the removal of those two pieces from the board, that means the next one they grabbed was Prince Mark Decker. Someone is making a play. Someone is, as fast as they're losing assets or getting new ones, they're making a play for Chicago. And it leaves the question of who would do it? Who wants Chicago? Who thinks they can take it? It is from that meeting that Jenny and Isabella left there to go finally to visit the House of Lilith, run by a toreador named Azule. Now, the House of Lilith is very interesting. It is a thin blood haven in the city of Chicago. And I know our kind generally do not like the thin bloods because they are not kindred, really. They are something in between, weaker, less powerful. But that is Urzule's thing. And while there, it seems Urzule was trying to convince Jenny of the merits of the Bahari. An interesting group. For those that understand the Bahari, or that don't understand them, the Bahari believe that Lilith was the true first vampire. It was she who taught Cain what he knew, and Cain betrayed her. And only when the Dark Mother is acknowledged, worshipped, and the Garden of Eden is restored, will the kindred's true place return. Now, there are many factions. Some are more radical than others. Some are rather, I will honestly say, brutal about their beliefs. But not all of them are like that. It is yet to be seen what kind Urzuli is, though from the hints that she said so far, it does not appear Urzuli is quite as vehemently opposed to members of the opposite sex, which is good. Bodes well. But it was also at this House of Lilith that they learned of the Urzule special. You see, it is a drink made by Thin Bloods. Always useful Thin Bloods. That is, I heard it described as vampire Molly. It simulates the effect of a number of kind drug cocktails, but it actually works on kindred. It makes all their senses heightened. It makes them feel again, their skin sensitive, their lust and drives take over. Very odd thing for someone who has been dead inside for so long to feel. And Isabella tried it and had a rather interesting night of feeling again. This vampire Molly will come up again later, because it is not the only time people have been to Urzule's club. Let's see, what shall we talk about now? Oh, there is so much to go over. Lamar met with Khadijah Al-Kinde, Primogen Khadijah, I should say, to inform her about the shepherds being in the city confirmed. And he got a bit of a history lesson on what exactly the shepherds were and why the Banu Hakim split. It was also at this meeting that Khadijah revealed to Lamar that she has been doing a bit of advising towards Kevin Jackson to advise him on more traditional, views of the traditions themselves. And that, most importantly, Marcel was placed as friend of the court by Jackson onto the Primogene Council to literally cause them to fight each other, to cause them to, not work together against him. It's actually quite shrewd when you think of it. You put a Setite, known to be a corrupter, onto the council. This Setite admits what he is, warns him what he is, but still offers the advice, still pokes and prods the old wounds, still encourages the rivalries. The Primogene Council spends so much time dealing with that Jackson has had more power than, Loden ever did. More power than Peterson either. And it's good that we bring up Loden and Peterson, you see, because Jackie finally got a chance to speak to the chess master, Cedric Calhoun. And while over a game of chess, they had a discussion about another chess game, one that is being played out in regards to Decker and Jackson, Capone, and Luke, and many others like it. They went through a chain of events. See, if Jackson were to fall, and they had convinced Peterson to try to push him, Peterson has the resources, but Peterson would never be accepted as prince. Because, last time he was prince, he bankrupted the city. So, if Peterson is misinformed and would declare praxis, okay. In that case, who would make a good alternative? One Miss Annabelle would obviously nominate Modius, her child. Given a choice between Peterson, who has bankrupted the city, and Modius, who was Prince of Gary, Modius would get to be prince now, wouldn't he? But see, this is the problem. Modius would not last long. He has always grasped for things beyond his reach. Cedric gives Modius 5 years to 10 years that he could hold to princedom, maybe. But in the interim of that, Annabelle's power base would be ruined, you see, because Modius is her child, and he becomes prince, and he fails as prince. That affects her as well, doesn't it? That erodes her status. And with a failed prince, there would be a chance for a new prince, one who is, invested in the city as well. One who used to be prince. Prince Maxwell, the one Loden overthrew. Maxwell did not leave under bad terms. It was a replacement of convenience, you might say. Loden took him out during some Chicago fires. It was an easy chance to, under the cover of the events, to take over. Given a choice between Modius and Maxwell, many would choose Modius or Maxwell rather than civil war in the city. So this game of who benefits that was going back and forth finally established to Jackie the exact chain of events that seemed to be set in motion. And she also learned where Cedric would fall. Cedric is a pragmatist. Given a choice between Peterson and Modius, or civil war, he would pick Modius. Given a choice between Modius and Maxwell at Modius's failure, or civil war, he would pick Maxwell. Cedric understands that any time kindred go to war and a bloody, prolonged praxis battle breaks out, many people pay the price, and one of them are usually the Nosferatu. It seems when a war for praxis breaks out, the information brokers are the first targets. Makes sense. Roscoe, about this time, took a trip to Benway's, discovered even more cursed items. He also finally met with Or the servant of the tongue. The less I say about that one, the better. The tongue says it knows all, it sees all, but like many tongues, it wags, with no thought about what it's actually saying. It's much easier to speak than to know, is much easier to talk than to understand. This leads to what Ambrose told the coterie, which was Ambrose revealed to Roscoe that the company who gave Mark Decker money is actually a front organization for Peterson, former prince. And that organization actually recently transferred a series of buildings to Amelia. Amelia Locke, who is the nosy bitch of Chicago, a reporter of all things. So the coterie arranged a meeting to talk with her about it because they like Amelia. They hope that Amelia is not involved in an attempt to overthrow the prince. But even if she is, one way or another, they have to get to the bottom of this because their own stupidity is tied up in things. But when they called Amelia to meet with him at the club, it was also a night the baby chorus was playing. And Nicholas, who is not one for, information discussions with Ventru, went to check this ghost that always seems to be at baby chorus's performances. And as true to form, this ghost was there that night playing saxophone. And Nicholas spoke with him. It turns out this particular ghost is Garwood Marshall Tremere. A rather odd Tremere. He just disappeared at one point. Poof, gone. After disappearing, Peterson was obsessed with him for a while. Don't know why, but Peterson took things from one of Garwood Marshall's havens. Things that this coterie is hoping Amelia manages to find. Garwood gave Nicholas some information about possibly where to find a picture. You see, Garland was there the night that the Lupine attacked the cave. Garland was there the night that Damien's love died. So Garwood would know. Let's see. Let's discuss the meeting with Amelia. Rather important one. This meeting, turns out Amelia had been given a number of warehouses by Peterson, and she was to hold them all for 50 years. Warehouses, laundromat, shipping company. Supposedly there are other companies that have not been transferred yet. Amelia, not liking the implications of what the coterie was asking, offered to show them this warehouse, to let them check it out, to satisfy their curiosity. And so the coterie departed that night to go and see this warehouse. It was an empty warehouse, though there was a spot noticed on the floor that at one point had a box, difference in layer and dust. But Roscoe, using his ability to see what was unseen, noticed a faint residual trace of blood magic over a section of floor. And so this coterie decided to bust through to see what would be there, because if there's blood magic under the floor, well, if it's under the floor, it means something's under there. And so they proceeded to bust out the cement floor here. And when they got to a certain point, they discovered there was a ward on the underside, because when they broke it, the lines of the ward, all of the concrete there exploded upward into the room, opening a passage that led to the undercity. Now, why would you booby trap the inside of a passage? Or you wouldn't, unless it's not a booby trap. If it is an escape hole, a way for people to exit unsuspected areas, well, what better way than to have it explode now, right? They investigated this underpart and found the undercity and noticed the water that runs and it being Feral Nos domain. Led the coterie to understand, what if you were making a play for the city and you needed to distract people? Well, the information brokers in the city are Nosferatu. They're the most in the know. So if you wanted to distract them, you give them a problem that they have to deal with. Say, Feral Nos coming from the Undercity. Clan Nosferatu would be bound to be the ones to have to address this, to deal with their own clan. And so their ability to interfere with a change of the guard, a new prince, would be severely limited. Someone has been planning for this for quite a while, you might say. But they decided the best way to fix this was to reconcrete the opening and put very large and heavy objects over top of it. Safe metal plating, so that even if they blow it open, well, anyone who blows it open will have a good ton of safe land on them. I believe the reference was to Looney Tunes. Not quite sure what they meant by Looney Tunes, but I'm sure somebody out there will understand what that meant. Let's see, shall we go with here? As frequent, Jackie is a visitor once again to Cedric. She loves to go to him to have these discussions, to get this information, to find out about things. And there she met, well, another Nosferatu that she had seen only once before in Winneca's camp, a Mr. Antoine. He is French accented speaking Nosferatu that seemed to be oddly fascinated with Jackie. It was there that Jackie finally learned about what the Withered Ones were, what Antoine was doing in the city, and, well, what she has to do to help Cedric. She found out that Anton is there working with Winneca. Now, we're going to come back to that individual because there is something that Jackie could have put her finger on at the time, but it was important about him. Same time this night that Jackie was meeting with Cedric, Roscoe and Nicholas went to check out the statue that Jackie had bought from Benway so long ago and found that, shockingly, it's cursed. I know. Let that sink in. Another cursed item from Benway's. But that is not the most, that's just one of the many cursed items. They found that Nicholas had bought a series of rings from Benway's shop, and these rings had various curses on them. And the most important with is one, it seems to have the owner stalked by a shadowy form. And then at some point, this shadowy form, this darkness, finds them alone and explodes them into little pieces. They don't quite know what it was, but they come up with a plan for this ring, which we'll swing back to, I guess, here shortly. I want to talk about the other ring. One of the other rings they found seemed to cause its owner to become a cannibal, which you may argue that as a kindred, you already drink blood. Well, what's the difference? But I will bring up again. There is a big difference between drinking blood and feasting on the flesh of the dead. When a kindred drinks blood, they can lick the wound, they can close the wound, they can heal the wound. And I know that seems shocking to you, but if we always left puncture marks on everyone we fed on, we would have been discovered long ago, correct? But when you start gnashing down and treating human bodies as the noms, well, we can just say that that leaves evidence it's a little harder to hide. And Nicholas, in his, well, immense wisdom, has decided to keep this cannibal ring. And I'm sure so far he has not gone cannibal, and it won't have any negative effect on him. I'm sure. Okay, I can't even say that. We shall see how long he can resist the effects of the ring. As for the exploding death ring, we will bring that up again shortly. As I said, there's so many things intertwined. We go to Jenny, who met with Primogen Naomi Stewart and finds out for the destruction of Capone, Clan Ventrue will no longer hold an interest in her hotel that she was putting in Ventrue domain. That is a way of thanks for fixing the stain that Ventrue endured for Capone being embraced. Also, that Clan Ventrue still owes Jenny a boon, as it owns the rest of the company, Coterie company. Odd. Coterie a boon. So now this Coterie, they had a boon from the prince, the boon from the Primogen of the Ventrue. Stacking up these boons, quite useful to this group, you might say. Quite useful. Let's see, where should we go now? What was Isabella doing during all of this? Well, Isabella was meeting with Honor Mercer, which is child of Prince Decker, the one that, well, they did that raid to go save, well, not save her, but save Tessa, so that Decker would stop trying to get Honor. So the whole mix up with the mages thing. But Isabella decides to send Honor to spy on the Anarchs, to gather info, to find out what's going on in the pit with Baron Anita. It's actually a good idea, because if Honor is attached to Keisha, Keisha is an ambassador of the Anarchs among the various Anarch groups, so it would make sense that her friend would be hanging there. But it also comes back to, if she's a friend to Keisha's, she has been falling under Keisha's sway. It is never a good thing when your friends fall under the sway of a Setite. They are corruptors, after all. It is from this that Jackie and Isabella have finally fully realized how dangerous Keisha is. They knew already in some ways, but her tendrils are stretching far. And so the coterie has formed a plan now that has to do with this exploding ring. You see, the plan is to get Keisha the ring so that, well, the ring solves the Keisha problem, so that whatever this odd thing is comes and destroys Keisha. We shall see how long this takes, because my understanding of that curse is it doesn't go quickly. It takes a while to take effect. It was later this night that the coterie got together to discuss this plan, that Isabella decided, having made a deal with Jenny, that she would get, well, a taste of the blood of the gangrel, the blood of the wild. You see, Isabella had need for some abilities that Toreador don't routinely have. And so Isabella tasted Jenny's blood. Now, what Isabella did not consciously realize is that, unlike many kindred, the bond on her lasts a lot longer, runs a lot stronger. It is not the same. That sip decidedly had an impact on poor Isabella. And many in the coterie has noticed that Isabella is now acting a little fonder towards Jenny, a little more friendly, a little more apt to listen. Wonder, well, how far that will go. The bond will wear off in time, but it's a question of time, isn't it? I've brought up mages several times, and yes, for those that are new here, magic is a thing in this world. Mages are a thing. They prefer to call themselves awakened. They do not like being called mages, wizards. I believe the quote was, that lends itself to too much Harry Potter. It seems one mage met with this coterie, one Franklin. And this Franklin had, well, he does give me some Gandalf kind of vibes, actually. But I guess that's neither here nor there, isn't it? He was a very civilized individual. This is the same Franklin that, well, taught Decker the error of his ways. But you see, he's run into a problem. Samantha's act of blowing up a building violated several of the local strictures of the mages, violated several rules. But during the investigation, they found that Samantha's volatile. She is unpredictable, but it's not all her fault. You see, she has been being manipulated both magically and physically, mentally, and in some ways supernaturally by her friends Tammy and Allison. And of course, as mages, they want to get to the bottom of this. So when they went to find Tammy and Allison, something seems to be blocking the mages from finding them. And Franklin, being a very close friend of Tracy Graves, very close, too close sometimes, I think. He spoke to Tracy, and Tracy told him to get with this coterie. So Franklin has engaged the coterie to help locate Tammy and Allison so that they can be, well, questioned by the mages, which leads them to Balthazar, which for many of you, you may remember Balthazar is the one who visited Roscoe in his bookstore some time ago and made threats about stay away from Allison or else. Well, I'm sure that Balthazar will be quite reasonable when it comes time, and Discardia won't have to destroy him too. Well, maybe not. They went to pursue him that night, always being quick to investigate. And while investigating, they found he had been at the pit, which is the hangout of the Anarchs. Now, the problem is, Jackson is Prince of Chicago, but not many princes have had reaches to the farther side edges of Chicago. And in this case, the pit being the seat of Baron Anita Wainwright's power, if you call it power, it would be a rather big incident if they just went into place and started kicking everybody down. So they made a note of where he is traveling through the sewers to get there. And I guess they're going to be dealing with him coming up soon. But it was also the same night that they found Carnal House. It was a pit of a room where people had been murdered and their faces ripped off. It seems the withered ones had been there and butchered many people to make their masks. This is also the same night that Jenny decided to show kindness to a homeless person to get him out of the alley, out of the way, witnesses and all. And she gave money to this homeless, one-eyed individual, one blue eye. And this one-eyed individual left the alley. But we all know who has one eye, who thinks highly of themselves, who thinks they are more than they are, and seems to have a grudge against anyone and everyone around him. That was, of course, One-Eyed K, also known as Prince Loden. Former Prince Loden, though in his head he is still the prince. I'm sure that won't come back. Well, actually, it comes back to be a problem here shortly. You see, Jenny ends up the next day with her hotel that's being under construction firebombed. And security footage showed a homeless man doing it. Now, this is something that has come up before. It seems there's a pattern that Loden will pose as a homeless person on the street, a beggar. And if he sees someone show pity on him, show compassion, it enrages him. And he normally goes and replies with fire. I don't necessarily agree with that. It seems counterproductive to me, but that is his way. And I will agree with the statements I'm hearing here about Balthazar is not a reasonable individual and he needs an ass whooping. Yes, he does. Balthazar is a racist, misogynistic, psychopathic pig. That's enough to say on that subject. We would all be better without him. But let's go back to after Jenny's place was set on fire, though it wasn't much damage. Apparently, Loden is not very good at burning a place to the ground because he did not manage to set back Jenny's timeline more than a week. Jackie and Jenny went to the house of Lilith. And then once again, we bring up the vampire Molly. It seems Jackie this time tried it, while Jenny made a agreement to come see Urzule during the next new moon, to walk Urzule's garden, to find out more about what it means to follow the Dark Mother. And Jackie, under the effects of this interesting thin blood concoction, I believe the kind call it a booty call. She contacted Dread, who is not only an Archon, but he is her Mawla. She contacted Dread, and the two of them met up at her haven. And both of them sampled, well, this thin blood concoction. I believe I heard her call it fang banging, which is odd. But it was time spent. Let's see. What can we talk about? Well, Lamar, who we haven't had much to talk about here, Lamar met with Nick and found out that Wineka is training an army to fight the supernatural, which is disturbing in a lot of ways. You see, sure, you can train people to fight Lupine, but the same training you use to fight Lupine, something that is faster and stronger than you and a lot tougher, also applies to Kindred, which is an upsetting concept. But I'm sure Wineka is a perfectly sane individual who would not use that to his advantage, right? And then the coterie went to meet with the Anarchs. Jackie met with Anita and found out that Anita is a bit more unstable than she was. And as far as Jackie can tell, Anita is under the control of Menelaus, the ancient one that they pulled from the tomb. It would make sense. She is a Bruja. She had hinted before that she knew something of who Menelaus was. That would tell you that she was under his control before. And if you were an elder, well, even more elder than elder, you would reestablish your control rather quickly, now wouldn't you? Jackie has decided, I think this is the last time she's going to see Baron Anita for a while, being under the control of a Methuselah is never a good thing. And she also doesn't feel that Anita's idea is going to work out well for Anita. You might as well not go and spend time with a Baron who is probably going to end up dead and not be a Baron for long. It just makes sense, does it not? Let's see, where should we go from here? It was that same night that the coterie had to meet with Prince Jackson. Now, there was a small slip-up by Miss Isabella Caputo this night where she may have mentioned Prince over the phone. Now, I know a lot of people are paranoid about what you say because you're afraid that the Second Inquisition, but I have to say, there are words that you can say and there's words that you can't say. And Prince is not as dangerous a word as things like coterie or Ventru. So I'm sure that no one would have noticed that she had said this. So they went to speak with Prince Jackson. And it's here that Jackie finally revealed to Prince Jackson that Loden does live. Because though she had warned Damien, she felt that Damien must not have warned Jackson. Well, Loden revealed that, or Jackson revealed that night that he knows Loden survives. And that the court will take no action against the ex-prince. It seems Loden was prince for a long time. He gathered a lot of information that could damage the kindred activities in the city, that could topple the court of Chicago, that could destroy the economy of Chicago. And when you think of it, it would make sense. Loden, while prince was, he sired Ballard. He sired Sovereign. He knows all of their dirty laundry. He knows the dirty laundry of Cratius. Probably has enough on Annabelle. Knows the dirty laundry on most of the kindred in the city. The fear of that information being used would keep the court from going against him. But what Jackson did inform the coterie is they are relatively new. They came to the city after Loden's fall. And having come to the city after Loden's fall, Loden would have no information on them. So if the coterie decides to kill Loden, well, that just did the court a favor. Essentially, Jackson has given the coterie go-ahead to destroy the ex-prince, to remove that problem. And he's even offered to send assistance, though we shall see what the assistance is. I have a feeling before too long you will find out some of the information on what that form the assistance will take. Where shall we go with this one? Oh, yes. The coterie informed Jackson about the Decker, Maxwell, Peterson potential takeover. And while Jackson does not seem to be giving it the same severity of thought that the coterie is, they have done their part to inform him of what's going on. And even Jackson said that there could be some looking the other way if something happens to Decker, provided at least a little subtleties involved. Where do we go? Where do we go? Would you like to hear of Jackie and Lamar's visit to see the madam? Jackie went to take her cursed statue and finally brought Lamar to meet the madam. It was a rather eventful discussion. You see, Jackie, while meeting with the madam, found out the daughter of Colette, or the son of Colette, is in the city. Daughter, son. Why are my words so lost today? Well, no matter. The son of Colette walks the city. Her son. You see, Jackie had thought her son died after the war. She had went back to Paris to check in on him and found a grave. It turns out her son walks the city. And Lamar found out he is a Templar, and though he has left that title, the title has not left him. It still binds him in chains that bind him out of a duty. And the madam informed him that those chains are not broken yet. He will have to use that title again, be called on to use it for his friend's sake. Finally, he learned a question about his dead wife. It turns out the woman that he had left long ago when he had become embraced to protect her, which is common for kindred, to be fair. She loved him still. She loved him to the day she died and loves him still now. She holds him as what they call a fetter, something that binds her to this earth, that makes her walk the earth to continue. Lamar was shook by this because, well, he did not expect her to have held on as long, especially after she tried to crash him into a lake. But you see, the wraiths are governed, as I mentioned before, by something called a shadow. You have an alter ego, a second half, very malignant, angry half. And it would be this half that took control of the car that night and crashed him into the river as a way to punish her and him. Lamar found that she loves him still, even as a ghost. Very difficult for someone who has turned their back on that part of their life so long ago to deal with. Speaking of deaths, Isabella finally met Amelia de Carlo, La Sombra, elder, blood-hunted monster, slayer of Nicholas's sister. She met with her in the form of a shadow who spoke. And this shadow informed Isabella that she will make Nicholas watch Isabella die in his arms, as did his sister. She is going to kill the likeness of his sister just to punish Nicholas once again. What kind of hate does she have for Nicholas or for his lineage, for Isabella that she would do this. Why would she be obsessed with this? It's had a very strong effect on Isabella. Isabella does not like threats. But see, Isabella is a revenge artist, and she prefers to deal with things that she can address. But if you can't find the target, if you can't see the target, if you don't know where the target is, how do you deal with it? Isabella's coming to grips with that. And you are correct, Miser Mark. You bring up it is a petty hatred. You are correct. It is a very petty hatred, but our kind are very petty. You see, I've learned this through my many years. I have been 7 centuries now. I have walked this earth. I have learned the older we get, the more all we have left is our pettiness. All we have left is the anger, the slights we felt or feel or imagine we feel. That is all we have to drive us. So we become obsessed with these petty gestures. Roscoe once again returned to Benway's shop and confronted Benway with his cursed items. Found out that Benway has no choice but to sell them. He sells them for his sire, who gets them from out east, somewhere where the Gehenna War is being fought. And yet, Roscoe knows what he sells is cursed, knows that he has cursed items. And once again, Roscoe left the shop with an item, a book. Now, the last time Roscoe left with a book from Benway's shop, it did not end well for Jonathan Fitzpatrick. So once again, Roscoe is left with this book. Interesting. A book written in a language no one has ever been able to understand. All is one long script. But is somehow tied to a tablet fragment that Roscoe has at his shop. I wonder why they would be tied. Why would they be linked? Who knows? I guess we'll find that out too, won't we? Let's see, where shall we go? Jenny spoke with Tyndon Ripper. Found out, well, a few things. First of all, his pack was the one who put Dread into torpor at the Lupine War, but it was also this Lupine War where Tyndon Ripper's pack lost so many people that they became disillusioned with doing what the elders say to do just because they have to do it. He's not happy with, well, we're fighting the vampires because we say they're the worm, and that is how so many of his friends died. But he also revealed that Tyndon Ripper's pack has an issue with Loden, has a problem with Loden. That Loden, the one-eyed king, they call him the Berserker, attacks them as well with a silver two-handed sword. I guess common allies in this may turn useful in the end. Tyndon Ripper does seem the sort who would work with Jenny if a chance came to take out Sir Olaf, the one-eyed king, former Prince Loden. Let's see, where shall we go? Nicholas, once again, he found Zal playing at her cemetery and found this time she'd been burned from a fire she does not remember. She discussed with him that she sometimes wakes with injuries, stake marks, holes in her chest, dead bodies in her room, things that she never remembers. And Nicholas also learned that though Zal does not understand it, her haven changed. She's not in the same haven she was. Someone has tampered with her mind and is just re-editing the past to make it fit. Such a young kindred to have her memory played with. But it seems unlike Braden, where it is a ham-fisted, brutal method. Whoever is doing Zal's memory is quite skilled, quite subtle. They clean up the edges. They clean up the bits and pieces Zhao doesn't need to know. They do it in a way that does not destroy her mind. I wonder who would do that. Let's see. Shall we discuss when Isabella told Nicholas what Amelia said? That Nicholas was going to watch Isabella die in his arms, much like his sister did? Poor Nicholas frenzied from that one. But thanks to the quick thinking of Jackie and a little bit of Dominate, she managed to calm him down. Jackie discussed with Cedric about Antoine, actually. I found out more information on him, and Jackie at this point, well, she's pretty sure she knows who Antoine is, but she was waiting for confirmation. The confirmation she needs would come from her Justicar. Information call she put out. She wanted to know from her Justicar who Antoine's sire was. You see, her Justicar is Justicar Parr, who spends a majority of her time in Europe. And as a Justicar in Europe of Clan Malkavian, Parr would know or be able to find out who the sire of this Antoine is. Nicholas had a visitor because of his visit with Vizal that explained to him he was a well-dressed, if archaic, gangster spirit who explained to Nicholas that this is his last warning to leave Zhao alone. I have a feeling that Nicholas doesn't take warnings well. I believe they fall under the heading of big red button. I don't think he's going to leave it all alone. Isabella revealed she had a new trick. It has been busy for this group. Isabella decided she needed to go inform Braden that Amelia DiCarlo is in town because that is his sire and he's convinced she's out to kill him. Not without good cause, of course. So Isabella revealed she has learned how to shape her face. I believe the power is called, it is vivicitude. It is something, well, some Toreador are known to use it. They are able to create monsters of themselves with it, to create what they feel is a work of art on their own body, much like some other clans we do not mention do. But in the case of Isabella, she changed her face to go meet with Braden. But what Isabella didn't know is, well, Amelia DiCarlo was already on to her. Amelia DiCarlo, being a shadow dancer, one who can be one with the shadows, be part of the shadows, be in the shadows. What was shadowing her? Because when Isabella went to meet with Braden, and he asked if she was going to give him sanctuary, and she agreed to this, he was supposed to come meet her that night at her house, or at her haven, at her bar, so that she could help protect him. And she left as he was gathering his stuff up. Well, we shall see how this goes. You will find out shortly about his fate. Did not end well for him. But we have to bring up a little side discussion about cultists. We've had so many cults here in Chicago. We brought up Bahari, the Withered Ones, the Shepherds, Order of Mithras, the Temple of Set, followers of Set, really. But there's one we haven't brought up. It is it's less a cult and more of a drug craze. It is called Ash, and it is sold by the Ash Finders. And it turns out Jackson has requested the coterie to look into this. You see, Amelia was looking into it before about this new drug that seems to be causing a problem with kindred. Big amongst the thin bloods. And it seems this drug gives you hallucinations if taken by a kind, but if taken by a thin blood or a kindred, they get some of the memories of the one that it was made from. And I say made from because it wasn't long before Jackie put two and two together and remembers from a Banu Akeem who had taken the ashes of her fallen sire that night when Tally had murdered him and had verified the events as they happened, Jackie remembered that you can pull memories from ash and realized that the name of it was no coincidence. They were using the ashes of kindred to pull memories from that dead kindred. Ash finders are very apt in this case. And this coterie has been put on the trail of finding out where these ash finders are from, where they're getting it, how they're doing it, and to put a stop to it, or in some way deal with it. And they met with Amelia and took over this job from her. And this is a rather important part because Amelia had been on it, but Amelia may be nosy, but she is one person, one kindred. One kindred will never have the amount of information sources multiple kindred have, because the coterie immediately that night started reaching out to their own points of contact. Jackie found out one of her customers has been banned because of ash. Jenny starts having Evan look into it. Finds out that her ghoul Tasha's family may know some bits about it. Lamar met with the surplus owner Stan and found out he can't get hold of it anymore. And Roscoe, oddly enough, found an odd flyer that mentions your weight worth more than your weight of gold or something to that effect. And that points them towards Milwaukee, Decker's territory. Should be interesting to see if they can run down this particular drug. But it was this night that the coterie returns. After gathering the information, Isabella goes to her pub and finds a box waiting on her. Now you might ask, what's in the box? What's in the box? Well, probably don't want to know the answer to that. Turns out it was Braden's scalp and his eye teeth. Apparently Amelia DiCarlo was out to kill her child. And if she hasn't killed him, well, he's missing some teeth and a scalp at this point. I think it's safe to say she is dead. And Jackie finally got her info from her Justicar. Turns out she knows who Antoine's sire is. It is a Nosferatu friend of hers that she asked to watch over her son when Jackie was called away to, well, work with Nolan at the time. Now, why he would end up embracing her son when he was given express command not to do so, I guess that's something to find out, because Jackie now really wants to find out and meet with Antoine. And she has had Etienne reach out to contact the French embassy to get word to him. And as we're coming to the end of this tale of what's going on, well, Nicholas spoke with his sire and found out that Zhao's memory was definitely changed by a wraith, one of the Memnoi, as they call them, the memory changing wraith. It is a forbidden practice that is still done. But that isn't even the important part. The important part that Nicholas finds out is that his sire knew Izzy's death was not natural. He knew Amelia DiCarlo did it, and he hid it from Nicholas for all these years. He had hoped that the feud between Amelia DiCarlo and Nicholas's family was over with the death of Izzy, but apparently it is not. How does Nicholas take it? I don't know. And as we're coming closer to the end, Roscoe, well, after arranging with Sun Chi to find her way out of the city, Roscoe finally went to meet with her to give her the documentation. And waiting there was Victor, watching the place. And Victor explained that the last time Sun Chi came to see Roscoe, Victor was watching. And they managed to take Sun Chi, managed to capture her. And she's being held prisoner in the Chantry while the Council of Pontifex come to Chicago to pass judgment on her. This council is including Roscoe's own sire, which is going to be interesting because you see, Roscoe's sire is a pyramid loyalist. She believes in what it means to be Tremere, believes in the chantry and the structure. And Roscoe has turned his back on it. He has betrayed it. What shall their meeting be like? Well, they're on their way. Multiples are on their way. Strauss, Roscoe's sire, Shrek. This should be a very interesting meeting, an interesting judgment. But why was she to be destroyed? Roscoe knows she's not an infernalist. Victor acknowledged she's not an infernalist. But Victor said sometimes the sins of the sire go on the child or the whole line. So it is something that Sun Chi's sire has done that is going to cost her. And finally, we come to a little bit at the end here. You see, Jackie got some more of the vampire Molly because good old Lamar had expressed an interest in it. And she let Lamar try it. And caught up in the lust, the two of them did something that I know many people have been waiting for a while. They have wanted to see the final hookup of Jackie and Lamar, though I don't think they wanted the final hookup. The first and only, it seems. Because after a night of passion between the two, where this vampire Molly even made their low humanity kindred selves feel something again, feel what it was like to be alive, to want to lust. It seems Lamar had a meeting with Martin, and Martin has called in the boon that Lamar owns, Clan Nosferatu, and he has asked Lamar to head out to L.A. to help Destiny. Destiny's got a problem with some La Sombra, and that is the price of the boon that Lamar owes Clan Nosferatu, is that he is going to go out and help Destiny. So it is a bit of sadness that we ended these past few months with Lamar departing the city. Now, will he be back? Even I will tell you I hope so. But who can say? Only time can tell, only fate, the ups and downs of life can tell you whether we will see Lamar back or not. But it is a shame that they finally break the barrier down between Lamar and Jackie, and he has to leave. And now we come to tonight with me out here with you. So now, have you any questions for me? Anything you wish to know about in the city? I will answer what I can. But we have summarized the events of the last few months. That is totally up to you if you decide you wish to know anything. I will say what's coming forward in the future. Well, I can tell you Jackie is going to have a talk with Antoine. There are some issues, family issues to work out. There is also, of course, the whole issue of this Alessandro threatening Nicholas. But which of the cults the coterie face is likely to be the greatest threat? Of all the cults they face, there are two to look at. Overt threat would, of course, be the withered ones. These are followers of the Nutuku. These are Nosferatu who have decided to prey on other Nosferatu. And though this coterie is not Nosferatu, collateral damage is rough. But if you want to go to the other part of this, subtly, not overt, the most dangerous underhanded cult will always be the followers are set. Their tendrils reach farther than you understand, farther than you can believe a lot of times. And they are always pushing, prodding, corrupting. So where it goes, those are the two dangerous parts. Has anyone bothered me recently for wet worker boons? As a member of the Alisters, I'm not big on giving out boons normally. I watch, observe, pass info, reach out to my contacts. In particular, my skills are the web. I'm not sure if you understand the web. It is a nickname we have given for the collective gestalt of the curse of our blood. It is a subconscious linking between all of those who share the blood of Malkav that some hear more than others, and a few of us are gifted enough to hear more than the rest. Most of my work is watching that web, tending the web. And because of my nature of hiding in the city, there are very few people I owe a boon to, just as there are very few people who owe me boons. If more people knew I was around, I suspect Jackie would attempt to stop me from hanging out in her jazz bar as often as I do. It is funny, they still haven't managed to see me, to catch me while I'm at the jazz bar. But I am there more nights than they understand. I actually find I like jazz. It's not something from my time, but we progress. What else do we have in store? Well, I'm sure the Amelia DiCarlo thing will have to come to a head at some point. I am sure that Roscoe's problem with the pyramid is going to be bigger than he suspects. And I suspect for Jenny, she's going to have to do something about Bobby. She's going to have to do something also about Loden. But if there's no other additional questions, I am happy with that. It allows me to move on to the next portion of tonight's activity, which I call feeding time. Because as always, I can't let you all leave here. I can't let you all tell these tales to others. You are my buffet. You are my dinner tonight. You can try to run. You won't make it as last time. If you get away, it will not be with your memories intact. But I do bid you all, if you want to look at my earlier chats, my earlier discussions out here, you can go over to what they call the YouTube and see the past episodes. If you wish to ask your boy Twitch a question outside of here, you can always pop over to the Discord. I am not so tech phobic as Lasombra are, and I will discuss it there. I even heard somebody put my face on a mug. Your boy Twitch on a mug. Not sure how I feel about that. I'll decide later. As for what's coming up, well, let's see. You will not hear from us at all this week. We're coming into a new month now. And in this new month, the one known as Dr. Tiss is taking a break to move, so there'll be no Eldritch Horror. But next Sunday is a very special time. I am going to gather once again with everybody. And next Sunday at 5 p.m. or at 10 a.m. Eastern, we are going to start as I summarize all 7 seasons of Windy City After Dark. This will be not live, it'll be a rebroadcast of all of our previous meetings. Don't worry, I'll wipe your memories after that too. So tune in when you can. It is a holiday weekend. Spend time, do things with your family. Tune in for bits and pieces. Leave it on in the background as you go about and celebrate. But either way, that'll be there next Sunday. Also, please keep an eye on the Discord. I am about to announce a chance. Well, one shot at being a kindred, you might say. It'll be sometime in September. I just don't know when yet, but I'll be posting that in the next day or so, which means you might get to, well, sit at a table with some of the kindred you know from Chicago as we delve into something. And as always, everybody, I am Twitch of Clan Malkavian, a clan known for mental health issues and known for being eccentric. But mental health, everybody, is not a joke. It is not a laughing matter. It is not something to be taken lightly. Please, as a Malkavian, I ask you to check in on those around you. You never know who might also have some of the same issues that we are cursed with, some of the same problems dealing with the events of the world. Please check in on them. Ask them if they're okay. Even my clan requires companionship once in a while, someone to speak with, someone to talk to, someone to show it's okay. Please check that. Check in on our friends as well. As I'm mentioning friends, check in on the Ivy Raven, who you may know as Genevieve Schutz. Check in on Mischievous Red, who you may know as Isabella Caputo. Check in on the RPG Table, who you may know as Tracy Graves, or even Thara. Check in on the Ravenous Archon, who you may know as the one who played Shanky McStabber like a cheap fiddle in Blood on the Clock Tower, but also an amazing storyteller and a mage named Franklin. Check in on these people. Make sure they're okay and just say hi, pop in. And if you are like me and you suffer from mental health issues, please reach out to those around you and speak with them, much as I'm speaking with you tonight. You don't have to wipe their memories, but speak to them, talk to them, work through what you're going through with them. If you don't feel you have people around you, you can call or text the group of numbers that are in chat now, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, to get help that you need, to talk to somebody to walk you through it. As a proud member of the Malkavian clan, wearing my Malkavian signet ring tonight, mental health, everybody, is important. It's okay to admit you have a problem with it. It is not good to not get the help when you need it. So please do that. And also, please, everybody, reproductive rights, trans rights, human body autonomy, those are human rights. Please research the politicians in your area, research those running for office. Only support those who understand and support trans rights, human rights, body autonomy rights, and reproductive rights. Please make sure that the people that you are voting for support those rights. And of course, as always, fuck Putin. And if your boy Twitch could get hold of him, he'd have something to do for him for sure. But fuck Putin. And everyone be nice to each other. I say this as I'm about to eat all of you, but I'm going to eat you nicely. Don't worry. Good night, everybody. I will see you next time.